I always took the last train home because it was predictable and quiet, and predictability had become the only thing that kept my thoughts from spiraling at night. That night felt ordinary at first, because the platform was empty in the familiar way, with flickering lights and discarded coffee cups rolling gently in the wind. The digital board above me glitched once and then went completely blank, but I ignored it because it had done that before, and nothing bad had ever followed. When the train finally arrived, it did so without sound, sliding into the station like it had been waiting for me specifically. The doors opened and I stepped inside before I realized there was no driver, no conductor, and no recorded announcement welcoming passengers aboard. The doors closed immediately behind me with a thick metallic thud, and the train began moving faster than any train I had ever been on, even though there was no sensation of acceleration. I sat down and checked my phone, but there was no signal, no time displayed, and no reflection of my face on the darkened screen. That was when I noticed someone else in the carriage. A man sat several rows ahead of me, facing forward, completely still, with his hands folded neatly in his lap as if he had been placed there rather than seated. At first I assumed he was asleep, until I noticed that his reflection in the window did not match his body, because in the glass, his head was turned toward me and his eyes were wide open. I cleared my throat and asked him if this train stopped at my station, but he did not respond, and the lights flickered violently as if reacting to my voice. When the lights stabilized, the man was standing in the aisle, close enough that I could smell wet earth and something old clinging to his clothes. He smiled gently and told me I was already past my stop, and his voice carried the calm certainty of someone stating a fact rather than offering a warning. I told him that was impossible because I had taken this train hundreds of times, and he nodded as if he had heard the same denial many times before. The windows began to change as the darkness outside peeled away, revealing places from my own life passing by like stations that refused to stop. I saw my childhood bedroom, frozen exactly as it had been the night my mother left, and I saw the school hallway where I learned to keep my head down, and then the hospital room where the machines stopped beeping. The man explained softly that the train did not travel through space, but through moments people never truly leave behind. I ran toward the emergency door and pulled the handle with all my strength, but it did nothing, and the man only watched, as if he were waiting for me to understand. He told me that every passenger was given one chance to wake up, and that most people chose to stay because familiarity feels safer than freedom. The train slowed suddenly, and outside the windows I saw a platform crowded with figures standing perfectly still, all of them facing the train with their heads tilted slightly upward. As we stopped, I realized with horror that their faces were familiar, because they all looked like versions of me from different ages, each one marked by exhaustion and regret. The doors opened, and the man placed a hand on my shoulder, telling me gently that I could step off and remain exactly as I was forever. I asked him what would happen if I refused, and he said that waking up hurts, and that most people never forgive themselves for choosing it. The lights flickered violently as the figures on the platform began stepping closer, and I felt something pull at my chest, as if the train itself was trying to keep me. I tore myself free and jumped from the carriage just as the doors slammed shut behind me. I woke up on the cold concrete platform in the early morning, surrounded by station staff and paramedics who told me I had collapsed from exhaustion while waiting for a train that never came. They insisted there was no record of a train arriving at midnight, and no surveillance footage to support my story. I went home shaking, convincing myself it had been a stress-induced hallucination, until I emptied my pockets later that night. Inside was a train ticket I had never bought, stamped once. Destination, final stop. Since that night, I no longer take the last train, because every so often I see the man standing at the far end of the platform, smiling patiently, as if he knows I will eventually get tired again. And when the digital board flickers, it always shows one message for just a second longer than it should. Delayed. I tried to convince myself that what I saw on the platform was nothing more than exhaustion playing tricks on my mind. But denial became impossible the moment the dreams started following a schedule. Every night at exactly 12:07 a.m., I would wake up with my heart racing because I could hear the distant sound of a train horn echoing through my apartment, even though the tracks were miles away. At first, the sound was faint and easy to ignore, but each night it grew louder, closer, as if something were retracing the same route again and again. I stopped sleeping properly, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same empty carriage, the same flickering lights, and the same man standing patiently in the aisle. He never spoke in the dreams anymore, because he did not need to, and his silence felt heavier than any threat. One night I noticed something new. The ticket in my pocket was warm. I pulled it out with shaking hands and saw that the ink had changed, because beneath the original stamp, a second message had begun to bleed through the paper. Next departure, tonight. I told myself I would not go back, because whatever that train was, it fed on hesitation and routine, and I refused to give it either. But when midnight came, my phone buzzed once with a notification from an unknown sender. There was no message, only a photo. It showed me standing on the platform, taken from behind, wearing the same clothes I had on at that exact moment. I turned toward my window, and that was when I heard it. The train. It was not outside. It was below me. The floor vibrated as if something massive were passing beneath the building, and the walls groaned softly, like they were remembering something old. I ran outside without thinking, because instinct overpowered logic, and my feet carried me toward the station as if the route had been burned into my muscles. The platform lights were already on when I arrived, even though the station was supposed to be closed for the night. The digital board flickered once before displaying a single destination. Final stop, now boarding. The train slid into the station again without sound, and this time every carriage was full. Every seat was occupied by motionless passengers staring forward, their faces pale, their expressions calm, and their eyes reflecting memories that did not belong to them. I recognized some of them. They were people I had seen before, people who used to wait on that platform late at night, people who had slowly stopped appearing over the years. The doors opened, and the man was there again, standing at the entrance like a host welcoming guests. He told me I had stayed awake longer than most, and that persistence always made the return more painful. I demanded to know what the train really was, and for the first time his smile faded. He explained that the train was not taking people away, but collecting versions of them that had already given up, and that I was running out of versions to lose. The carriage lights dimmed as the train waited, and I felt something pulling at my chest again, stronger than before, as if my body remembered how close it had come to staying. The man extended his hand and told me that the doors would not open a third time. Behind him, the passengers slowly turned their heads toward me in perfect unison, and every single one of them had my face.